So this is the second meeting of this resilience group, and thank you for joining us. For some of you, this is the first time. For some of you, this is the second time, so welcome. So the topic of this meeting is strengthening weather and climate information services for resilience results and emerging lessons from PPCR supported projects. And for this topic, we are going to have a staff from CIF AU that will join us to explain a little more about what are the current activities and the past activities that they have been promoted in the last years, and also some examples that will allow us to discuss a little more in small groups later, so we can define also what are other topics that we are interested in working on in these interest groups. Next slide, please. So, like I just mentioned, so the agenda is welcome you again. We are going to have this presentation in charge of staff from CFAU, that this will take us around 25 minutes. And then we prepare some questions and some a discussion activity in which we're going again break the group in 3-4 groups, and in those groups we're going to discuss a little more about the things that CFAU has presented, but also what are your interests also. Finally, we're going to wrap up and discuss next steps, and that's it for this meeting. Next slide, please. JP?
Yes, thank you, Carolina. And thanks everyone for joining again. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you might be. Just before we start going into the more interesting part of our call today, I just wanted to go briefly over some of the ground rules that will guide the work of this group in order to make it a more productive session for all of us. So first and foremost, we're here to learn from each other. So we would ask you please to allow everyone the chance to speak. So keeping in mind that we don't have as much time as we would like to have these conversations, we would encourage you to keep comments concise in order for everyone to have a chance to share their own ideas and their own views. Second, we would please ask you to keep your microphone on mute while others are speaking. This is just to avoid some of the background noise that sometimes interrupts these sessions. So please, we would be thankful if you could do that. And we will just go over Zoom instructions in a few minutes in case you don't know how to put your microphone on mute. If you want to share an idea, we would please ask you to raise your hand. Again, this is part of the Zoom feature that we will cover later on. But having hands raised help us as facilitators to identify whoever wants to contribute to the discussion. Then we will encourage you to listen actively and with an ear of understanding others' views. Again, this is part of the shared learning exercise that we want to facilitate today. So please be open to any new ideas and try and understand them from where they are coming. Finally, I think for all of us to have a benefit of a useful and satisfying discussion, we would ask your contributions and commitment to contribute and learning in a respectful manner. And finally, if you have any technical issues with Zoom or any of the tools that we might use during the call today, We please ask you to contact either Shelby Thomas or Maria Jose Vallejo, both part of the facilitation team. You can send them a message directly on the chat, and they will be happy to assist you with any of the issues that you might have. And finally, I would like to turn this over to Shelby, who will cover some of the Zoom basics that we will need for this call. So Shelby.
Thanks, JP. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Shelby Thomas, and I'm here to provide any kind of tech support for the Zoom meeting today. I know that you all have a lot of experience with Zoom at this point, but I just wanted to let you know that this meeting is being recorded for future viewers or anybody who was unable to join us. Quick reminder to stay muted. If you're not speaking, your mute button should be at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. If you haven't already, go ahead and open the participant list by clicking on the participant icon. You can hover over your name and rename yourself to include your affiliation for anyone who doesn't know you. There's also a chat feature that you can open by clicking the chat icon. That's a place where people will be able to contribute thoughts and ask any questions. This is also where, if you have a tech question, please feel free to type it in for us and so that I can help you troubleshoot it. We will be using breakout rooms a little bit later. I can give you some more details then. You shouldn't have to do much though. Your computer and Zoom settings should just do all the work for you. JP, did I miss anything?
No, I think everything is covered.
Okay, great. Yeah, please feel free to ask questions if any pop up.
Perfect. Thank you, JP and Shelby. So just a quick reminder. So we have four main meeting objectives for today. First, again, share key results to date and emerging lessons from the portfolio of PPCR. Also, we want to discuss with you major barriers for the applications of WCIS in climate resilience planning and practices. And also we want to exchange insights and good practices for enable functional and self-sustaining of this, and also discuss some plans and next steps for this group. So since we have your attention right now and all the group together, we also want to share with you some of the proposed dates and next topics that we identify will be useful for this interest group to discuss. As you may know, we have a series of webinars planned for this year and the beginning of the next one. And since the first meeting, we wanted to listen to you and to understand what are your interests, but also what are the things that you, from your affiliations, can support and also add to these good discussions. So we identify 5 next topics that we want to cover. In September, we want to cover signals of resilience and transformational change. Then we want to talk a little more about case studies, and this was one of the main topics that we identified as interest for all the group. Then we want to talk about stakeholder participation. This will be on November. And then tracking and monitoring tools for resilience in transformational change. And finally, go deeper in private sector engagement. We encourage you to also give us feedback of these topics, but also if you are interested in participating in these webinars as a speaker, or you want to propose some case studies or things that could add to these topics, is more than welcome. We'll be happy to receive that. And these are the days that we are proposing to have these topics discussed. So this is just a quick reminder and invitation for you to participate in in building these webinars. So I think that we can start with the presentation of the staff of CFAU. So I will just invite you guys to start the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so could we have the next slide, please? So I'm Shan Lu, and I work for the Climate Investment Funds Administrative Unit as a consultant supporting PPCR related activities. And thank you all very much for taking the time to join us today for a discussion on probably not very common topic within the resilience community, the topics related to weather climate information services. And this is probably also not a very common practice within the TCLP community. And so normally SafeAU wouldn't probably monopolize the presentation, and we rely typically on external experts or project partners to present the work. But the reason we are doing it today is partially because this is relatively quite close to our kickoff meeting, so it's probably not very realistic to coordinate external speakers. And at this point, and also we are just about to finalize a publication, a knowledge product from the SafeAU. So we thought this is probably a good opportunity for us to share what we already included in the publication. And here is really just a very short set of thoughts from myself and Laurie Lofer, you will hear in a moment. So to throw out some of the key highlights of the PPCR supported hydromet projects in terms of what has been supported, and what probably more interestingly, what have we observed and learned in terms of supporting these sort of activities in countries. So the idea is really to try to stimulate some discussion among all of us attending this discussion today, to share some of the experiences and the lessons learned from within the whole group. So with that, I will just say a few things. First of all, about why we are so interested and investing quite heavily actually in this weather climate information services. And as we all know, as the health crisis is still ongoing, we know how important it is to have the information and diagnosis actually to get the signs and signals of something not being quite so well. So this climate and the weather meteorology hydrological services is practically to do this sort of function. And this is not new to all of us. So at a personal level, we want information on daily basis to determine what kind of clothes we're going to wear. Is it too hot? Is it going to be too cold? Or is it going to be wet? Take an umbrella or not? And then, to a more sort of societal level, we, the major industry, a lot of the real economy sectors, agriculture, transportation, aviation, and all those very important industries also heavily rely on information on weather conditions. And so going forward, we are talking about long-term resilience and how do we plan for the future. And again, we need very important information about what kind of infrastructure, for example, we need to be able to deliver the expected services and a very different climate in the future. So this is really fundamentally important part of our our daily activities and also for medium longer term planning. So this graph shows, all those long list of climate weather sensitive sectors when you rely on the provision of weather climate information. So can we go to the next one? So it is very important that we have access to such information, but the reality is that, it's not exactly, the countries are not equally well served in this regard. On the left-hand side of this slide, we have a piece of analysis carried out by WML together with FAO. I understand last year to scan through the nationally determined contributions from countries, and many of them highlighted the climate services as the top priority in terms of the agriculture and food security sector. And it's clearly a very important part of the sustainable development and climate resilient development. And so the need for information for good service is quite evident. But if we look at what's happening in the reality, looking on the right-hand side of the slide, so here is the per capita expenditure in US dollar terms in different types of different groups of countries. So the left one is according to the UNDP Human Development Index, and the right-hand block is the World Bank income group. So basically, we can see from the graph for the poor countries, they spend on average about $1 per person on climate weather services. And then if you look onto the high-income group of countries, they spend about $22 to $25 per person. So there's a huge disparity across different countries depending on the economic situation. So this is clearly something cannot be sustained. And the reason is that, if you have good national weather service, it's obviously beneficial for the countries, people and industry within the country. But globally, it's also very important that if we don't have good weather observational data from, for example, Africa, Asia, and the quality of the global weather forecast will be very, very obviously affected, because the weather climate system circulates around the globe, and the ocean currents and so on, so they are not respecting national boundaries. And if we don't have a very good global coverage of observational data, the quality of weather forecasts, long-term and near-term, will be undermined. So this is a sort of global public good we all need to help develop. And it's within this context, a lot of international the donors and different global initiatives are increasingly investing more in this particular area. So I will now hand over to Lori to give us a brief on what the CIF has been supporting countries in this particular area of work. Lori.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shenfu. Thank you so much for that very good introduction and background. So I'm here to present to you an overview of the CIF portfolio of hydromet projects under the PPCR. So in the PPCR, we have provided a substantial support to countries in order to strengthen their weather and climate information services. So just for simplicity, let's just call it hydromet. So PPCR has provided a total amount of $202 million for hydromet-focused projects, and an additional $114 million of CAP financing from the MDBs were added in these $202 million investments on hydromet. So we have a total of $316 million investment in hydromet through the PPCR. And in these hydromet projects, we have covered about 12 countries across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, and the Caribbean. When we are mentioning the hydromet projects in the PPCR, we are basically just covering those that are heavily hydromet focused, but there are also other projects in the PPCR where there are also small components where they wanted to strengthen the different components of hydromet in the country. And in the Caribbean, we also have a specific project in hydromet and climate services, which is providing support to a number of countries in the Caribbean to improve their investments and technical capacity on using the different climate data and information services. So these different projects under the PPCR were identified under the process of investment planning preparation of PPCR, which we call the Strategic Program for Climate Resilience. So the projects were identified through a programmatic approach. The stakeholders, which includes the ministries, the MDBs, and members of the different organizations have recognize that there's a need to prioritize these types of investments in order to help the country manage climate risk and adapt to climate change. Next slide, please. So under the PPCR, we have supported the different operational components of the hydromet value chain. When we talk about those different components, we are referring to the observation and monitoring. So an example of this is air and ocean temperature, rising global sea levels, the investment in hydrometric station and weather radar. The other component is data and information management. So for this one, we're covering data collection, storage, and analysis. It also includes the investments for high performance computing, automated weather station, and investments in websites and servers. The other component of the hydromet value chain also includes research, forecasting, and modeling. Here, you can provide investments on numerical weather forecasts, investments in early warning systems, and special forecasting. And then the fourth one is the service development and delivery, where we are providing information for information of climate products to clients, and where we put a significant amount of efforts in order to comply to international obligations and doing some data exchange. And overall, in these four different operational components of the hydromet value chain, the most important component, which is the fifth, is the training and capacity building that are needed by the countries in order to sustain their investments in the hydromet value chain. Next slide, please. So for this particular presentation and discussion, so we will be focusing on the PPCR support to 5 countries, and these 5 countries are Grenada, Jamaica, Mozambique, Nepal, and Tajikistan. So for Grenada, we have supported the country in terms of modernizing their hydromet data collection network and data management system. We also have provided training on watershed and flood modeling, drought hazard mapping, and also trying to adjust their hydraulic parameters for climate proofing infrastructure design. And then for Jamaica, we are implementing the Improving Climate Data Information Management project for the country, where it is focusing on improving the quality and use of climate-related data and information for effective planning at the local and at the national level. The project also involves upgrading hydromet data collection, forecasting systems, and also improving the climate resilient development planning information services. And one very unique component of the Jamaica Hydromet project is the support for climate change education and awareness raising in order to affect some behavioral change in the country. The next one is the Mozambique project, which is the Transforming Hydrometeorological Services project in the country, where it aims to support the delivery of reliable and timely climate information. And they are focusing this support in the 3 specific areas in the country: Zambezi, Limpopo, and in Komati River Basin. So the investments there are focused on hydromet monitoring networks, and they're also monitoring the effective data management and data exchange. There's also a component on improving forecasting capabilities and providing training and skills development for relevant staff. We also have a support in Nepal, and this is the project Building Resilience to Climate-Related Hazards. The country aims to improve the accuracy and timeliness of weather and flood forecasts, and they also want to provide timely information on climate for vulnerable communities nationwide. They also are focusing on providing support to the farmers by developing an agricultural information management system. They are establishing a multi-hazard information and early warning systems, and also strengthening the capacity of their hydromet agency. The last one is the project in Tajikistan, the Improvement of Weather, Climate, and Hydrological Delivery Project. This project is actually a part of a regional project for the Central Asia Hydrometeorology Project. So it's not only focusing on Tajikistan, but PPCR has supported that part of the project that is providing support to the hydromet agency in Tajikistan, and other countries that are involved in that project also include Kyrgyz Republic and other countries in Central Asia. So the focus of that project is to strengthen the regional coordination and information sharing and services, and specifically strengthening the hydromet services of the Tajik Hydromet, the meteorological agency of Tajikistan. Next slide, please. So under the PPCR, our support has basically focused on supporting countries in establishing data observation networks and information management systems. So it's basically comprising 67% of our support to hydromet and climate services. But in other countries, with the SPCR process, they have also identified the different components of the hydromet value chain where they see they need some improvements on and they need to strengthen. And so some of the projects has also focused on research, forecasting, and modeling, on service development and delivery, and on training and capacity building, depending on the varying needs of the different PPCR countries. So I hand it over now to Shenfu to discuss the different projects that we have focused on hydromet services, and what are some of the achievements and results of these hydromet projects, and some of the emerging lessons from these interventions. Shenfu, over to you.
Thank you, Laurie. Yeah, so I'm not, we are slightly behind schedule, so I'm not going to tell you how many meta stations and how many hydromet personnel we have trained in different countries. So what I'm going to do is to just quickly take through the 5 hydromet value chain components, focusing a little bit on the sort of observations and what we have learned from implementing these projects. And the publication shall be finalized pretty soon, and we will try to inform you when it's ready and out, so that you can get all the details from the publication itself. So the first component of the value chain is the basics, the observation and monitoring infrastructure, and this is a very much a quite expensive component to help many countries build from not very much. So this is also probably represent the largest portion of the capital investment in these projects. And typically the support covers the installation of new stations, put in new equipment, or upgrade the existing ones. And in addition to the hydromat equipment themselves, often we also invest in ancillary equipments in those very expensive, sensitive sensors. For example, they need to be in a particular space with specific conditions. So we also invest in those kind of infrastructure, power supply, and air conditioning space, air-conditioned space. In terms of the achievement, also, apart from the traditional temperature rainfall measurements, we also supported the measurements for water flow, river flow discharge, and sea level as well. And then for agriculture sector, soil moisture is also quite an important indicator. So we also expanded the measurements, what we can measure. And also the reporting, the reporting we measure, we set up observational stations, but what the data needs to be transmitted into a central place, and that also involves hardware investment, the cable system, and so on. So we need to go back a little bit. The slide. So from this block of activities, what been learned is the importance of the ancillary equipment and infrastructure. Otherwise, all those shiny new instruments may not be lasting very long if we don't have the environment they need to operate properly. And then the second one is to during the procurement process for this hardware, it really pays to spend some time and thinking around where to source these equipments. It's also very tempting to just get a whole lot from Europe or North America, but we need to think about what happens if we need spare parts. We need to replace certain elements of the instruments, and also the on-site support availability. If we get something from North America, if you are located in Asia, it's no good. You can't really get very easy access to technical backstopping if you need some help. So these are the things the Jamaican team did pretty well. This took a bit long time to acquire, to procure those different bits and pieces, but in the end they found some good suppliers, vendor, which can provide them on-site support and easily accessible if they need any parts and elements. The next one, please. Next slide. Yes, so then once we have those basic equipment set up in the fields, then the next thing to worry about is to keep the data and the information connected in a safe and central location, and also to be able to disseminate them effectively amongst all the users who would benefit from accessing it. So to do this, we again need a significant investment in terms of building the data management system, and also help develop the data sharing protocols amongst the different institutions. So in each country, the meta services probably play the predominant role in terms of providing the service, but it also needs to work very closely, seamlessly with other agencies, to do with the water resources, to do with agriculture, and to do with disaster risk management. So this is again quite a significantly important component in the value chain. Otherwise, all the data connected or not be of much use if it's not been archived properly and disseminated effectively across the different user groups. And then for this, we learned that to make this happen, we need to mobilize the national entities to take ownership, to really allocate sufficient staff and budget to keep the database up to date and and have the data exchange functioning all the time. Okay, next one. And then the next, moving on to the next stage of the development is the research capacity and the forecasting and the modeling. Forecasting for the near-term future from days to a week, and then modeling the medium longer-term scenarios. So through the PPCR projects, countries, the pilot countries carried out a full range of activities in this area. And typically they worked with partners in develop the country, climate modeling centers to improve the numeric weather prediction models, which they can use to do the near-term forecasts and also long-term modeling. And achievements have been quite remarkable, from the improvement of the near-term weather forecasts to longer-term the climate projections to provide high-resolution climate projections to support the national climate change impact assessment. In Jamaica, for example, they use the PPCR project outputs to update the state of the climate report. In Grenada, they used the results to inform the huge national infrastructure investment planning. So these are also quite urgent to catch up with for countries in order to really provide reliable and effective service to the different end users. And again, the learning from this package of activities is to forge the ownership of national institutions to make sure the capacities in research and in modeling can be sustained. And in order to do that, the national agencies, they need to allocate a part of the budget to in these activities so that they can sustain their own capacity and also take ownership and take pride in the improved services they can provide with the capacity they are building. Next slide. And then we move to service development and the delivery. And so as Laurie introduced, the different projects, they have slightly different focus in terms of what they want to achieve. So, so these different project teams, they made again a huge stride in terms of improving the existing services or developing new service lines. So this is an example of Nepal. They work with farmers and fishermen primarily. And now each week they issue a agrometeorology advisory bulletin, and it's very detailed. And again, in the publication, there's a lot more detail. And with this kind of information being disseminated quite regularly to the beneficiary groups, the beneficiaries are getting more and more advanced and educated, and also encouraged to use the information to guide their daily operational activities. And in the meantime, for the agencies involved, they also develop a strong sense of ownership and encouraged by the wide usage of the products. And also in Mozambique, the example is also to do with the service being delivered to fishermen, to farmers, and they use the information, for example, the forecast on wind direction and wind intensity. The fishermen can decide whether they should go out to the sea or not, or when they should return from the sea. So these are all very important services these agencies are providing. And to do that, we also need to help countries to put together a strategy or a business plan so that they can financially sustain themselves. By this can be achieved through improving the services. If the service is good enough to be commercially viable, then industries like aviation or the maritime transportation sector, they will be willing to pay for the services. So the hope is that longer term they can be self-sufficient financially, and the support from programs like the PPCR can withdraw without any concern about the long-term, the survival and sustainability. So this is really, a very exciting area where you can see the direct impacts that projects can make on the ground. And the learning from this element of the value chain is that, in order for the services and the products to be useful and to be able to be used and be relevant, the engagement with the potential users are absolutely essential. So you need to engage the potential users and your expected beneficiaries early on to figure out what sort of products will be useful for the activities, and in what kind of format, in what sort of language even sometimes, and how they help them interpret the information products they're going to receive. Next slide, please. Okay, so the final block is the training and the capacity building. So obviously, everything has to be done through intelligent people. We need the capacity, institutional and technical. So through the PPCR projects, a huge number of technical personnel from relevant agencies were trained. They are not only from the Met Services and hydrology institutions, but also some other potential user agencies, from the agriculture and the transportation, health, DRR agencies as well. And then there's also a element of public education. So like in Jamaica, they run a very energetic public awareness campaign, including the participation of the very popular local singers, artists, and so on. And then in this particular area of activities, we learned that, in order for the training capacity building result to be long-lasting, something in writing is quite useful and important. So people may come and go, but if we can keep those material, those learning in written format and document them carefully, so the newcomers can pick up, and also to ensure some continuity and the standards that can be carried through. So this is, I think, the sort of main results and learnings from this package, this portfolio of projects. And I will now hand over back to Laurie to outline what's next and what still needs doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shenfu, for highlighting those very important key results in some of our PPCR projects on Hydromet and some of the key lessons. And based on those analyses and findings that we have identified some of the key challenges and way forward in order to continue our support to our countries on strengthening the Hydromet services and how they are going to sustain all these efforts. And one of the things that we saw is that there's that need for, to continue the stakeholder engagement and coordination so that we will also ensure ownership over the use and application of weather and climate services. And we see that it is very important to ensure that our hydromet efforts are fit for purpose. Shanfu has touched on this also in her presentation. So we need to bring in all the relevant stakeholders from the outset when we try to identify specific investments in hydromet. And at the same time, we have to leverage on their knowledge of the historical weather and climate trends, and also identify the most appropriate interventions. And we also have to, we also wanted to highlight that hydromet services support the important element here is the long-term sustainability of the hydromet system. We all know that the governments have a very tight and very limited budgets, so it would be very difficult for them to allocate resources for hydromet. And so significant investments are needed to deliver and sustain a functional hydromet system for the government to support vital decision-making in the different agencies and in the different projects that they are undertaking on the ground. Next slide, please. And then for the other points that we wanted to make here is that we also wanted to emphasize the importance of leveraging the legacy of the SIF in leading the way to facilitating the support for hydromet, and at the same time facilitating the importance of local stakeholder engagement and ensuring the sense of ownership on how do we sustain upscale the PPCR efforts on hydromet. And with this one, we want to also emphasize the importance of engaging not only the users of hydromet services, but also who are the potential investors that can help the countries invest in hydromet services. So we wanted to flag that the private sector has a very important role that they can play in the development and provision of hydromet services. And since the PPCR funding is already been all committed, and we do not have substantial resources at this point to provide further support to the countries to invest in climate and hydromet services, the SIF support is continuing to support the countries through its membership in the Alliance for Hydromet Development. So we are working with the different agencies and with the World Meteorological Organization in supporting the countries in developing high quality hydromet services. And we are doing this by supporting the what they call the Systematic Observation Financing Facility of the Alliance for Hydromet Development, or the SOF. With the SOF, we wanted to further strengthen our support to the developing countries in achieving compliance with the requirements of the Global Basic Observation Network. We see that the Global Basic Observation Network is a very critical element for helping the countries move to climate resilient development path. And so with those points, I'll stop from there. And Shanfu, please feel free if I miss anything on the presentation. And we are open for any question or clarification from the group. Thank you.
Nothing from me at this point, Laurie, thank you. So maybe now we can take some quick questions if there are any.
Yeah, I think that maybe we can start discussing this internally in the breakout groups, so we can, because we are a little bit short of time. So also, if anyone has any question, please. Okay, Sakir has raised his hand.
Thank you very much, Maria. I'm sorry that I had been late, but anyway, the field reality of agrometeorological projects and initiatives, not only CIF, I'm not talking about only with CIF, but all other climate institutions projects, the field reality is far, far different than the policy and plans. There are a couple of important reasons why the field reality is so frustrating. I am talking on behalf of a farmers group, and we are friends of CIF, very good friend. So the main lackings of policy planning, that local stakeholders, I mean the grassroots, the local people, they are not properly involved in the policy making process and project implementation projects. So they are voiceless in a way. It would be very good that if the presenters they put some insights, whether the grassroots community or the local people, how they will be involved to mitigate the side effects of development. I repeat, the side effects of development at the local level. Thank you very much, Maria. Back to you.
So I don't know, Lori, Shanfu, if you want to take that,
Yeah.
but also we have another hand raised.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, maybe Carolina, we can take that question, and then Shenfu and I can answer those.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, please go ahead.
You're in mute.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Jedone Gudu from African Bank Development. And also I'm a climate and disaster risk officer for the Clean Day. Is okay? Are you listening to me?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a one of expert develop PPCI in my country, in Niger. And then now I'm working for Clean the special fund. But I want to take the case of Niger and Madagascar because I was also in Madagascar. And I know that the PPCR funds some observation and infrastructure in those countries, in Niger and also Madagascar. But what
I think that we are losing you. I don't know if maybe
from those countries is equipment hard. The equipment is not, it's not.
Yeah, I think that
Carolina,
maybe
I think
we are going to.
Yeah. We're losing Mr. Bodo. Yeah, maybe we can come back to him later.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. And also have us a hand raise from ACART. Maybe we can reserve that raised hand for the next dynamic. And so, Majo, can you go to the next slide, please? So just quickly, just to review some general instructions, and now with all the participants will be assigned to breakout groups. We are going to have 3 breakout rooms, and we are going to discuss 3 questions. In those groups, we are going to be we're going to have the presence of people from CFAU. So if you have any questions you want to discuss further, that will be the space. You don't have to do anything. Zoom will do that for you, just for joining to the breakout room. The next one, please. So we are a little behind of time, so we will ask you to be very very expedite with this. So we are going to use Jamboard. Once you are in the breakout room, you will have a note taker from our team that will help you to start using Jamboard with sticky notes, but we're going to have only not 10 but 7 minutes top to discuss some of these questions. And the next one. And also, yeah, we're going to respect the initial time that was allocated for this activity. So when there are 5 minutes left, a pop-up message will show, and then we will need to hurry up so we can come back to the large group to discuss a little more about what we discussed in those groups. So I think that we can start with the breakout groups.
Okay, I'm going to open the rooms right now.
Sean.
If you joined a little bit late, then I will assign you to a room after everybody leaves.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, everyone has been assigned to a breakout room.
Hello, welcome back. I think that we had a little time constraint, but hello?
Yeah, Jose, are you talking? Jose?
Yes.
Hello, I
No.
think we are now all back to the large
group.
group. Yeah, I don't think we're waiting for anybody else.
No, I don't think so. And also, I think that we can start discussing this in the large group. We didn't have the time to finish the third question, but maybe we can start discussing also from the other groups what did we learn today, and also. We are really interested in knowing what other examples, good practices and lessons that we can take from your experience with Hydromet. And I don't know if maybe the team that was with Jose Pablo can talk a little more about that.
Yes, thank you, Carol. I think Laurie will summarize our discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. In our team, we had although with a very limited time, I think there are some good points that were raised by the members of our group. And on the first question, in terms of what they think are the gaps in terms of the challenges and in addressing some of the challenges on Hydromet services. One observation was that looking at the PPCR example, there's a lot of investments on monitoring and reporting and on information and data management. So one thought is that maybe there's a need to expand the resources or available support for improving the usability, the sustainability of hydromet, and also focusing on training and capacity building. And some members of the team also mentioned the difficulty of procurement of equipment. I think this is also a case that was experienced in Jamaica. So this was also raised during the discussion. And overall, they see that the long-term sustainability of hydromet services is really very important. But the thing is, the countries are always facing with a limited budget. And so there's a scope of discussion on how we sustain some of these efforts under the PPCR and also expand it not only in the PPCR countries, but in other countries as well. And then in terms of other areas for further support, they also see that government policy has to be improved, the national capacity of the relevant staff and staff in the hydromet agency should also be strengthened, and there's also a need for better institutional coordination between the hydromet agency and the different agencies of the government. And then in terms of the different, should I discuss also for the other questions, Carolina?
Yes, you can do that quickly.
One go, okay. And then in terms of some of the examples, I have some examples were provided. One is the one that is being supported by Germany. It was not a PPCR supported initiative, but it was they put up a regional network in Africa to support data management systems where the different countries can access the data real time. So they see that this is a very important example that we can look into much more deeply. So basically a regional platform initiative that was provided. And then I also mentioned the example of Tajikistan and Philippines where they do a payment for the services that they have provided, since budget is one aspect that limits the government to improve their provision of hydromet services. So they are charging some reasonable amount for private sector in order to get those climate information and data services available. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I think in Raul's team, I think Shanfu was about to come. Oh, sorry. Raul?
Hi. Well, I was going to ask if.
Yeah,
yes, please.
Shanfu, you can go.
Yes, I can quickly run through what contributions we have from our group. So the first question, why aren't the climate information services more broadly used in supporting climate resilient development planning? So there are quite a range of thoughts around the barriers. So one is including lack of technology, broadly finance as well, and a lack of awareness also about the value and the benefits of such services on the part of the decision makers, I suppose. And then people are also not necessarily aware of the existence or the availability of such information. And then we also talk about the access to technology and the maintenance of ongoing maintenance work of the data observation system. And then there's a general lack of investment as well. So those were the issues related to the barrier for climate services to inform the resilient development planning and practices. And in terms of the viable business models for hydromet climate services. There's quite a range of ideas here. So people talk about using disseminate climate weather climate information services through mobile phones directly to users, and to use other mobile apps to disseminate information and the services. And some questioned why should this be a business model question? Shouldn't it be public service to be funded by the government? And then there should be scope for private sector to provide data. And again, indeed, we are talking about maybe private sector business model to provide such information.
Excellent. Thanks, Chanfu.
So
sorry.
One other question about the good practices to make sure the hydromet services system is self-sustaining. So there are different ways of make sure this is the case. And so our colleague from the African Development Bank mentioned that the adaptation benefit mechanism, which is to finance certain projects and then to make sure the project, if they can deliver certain self-sustaining hydromet service system, then they will be accredited with with certain credits which they can I don't know, it's cash into a process or to be awarded certain credits. So these are all very new and innovative financing ideas to to help support, among other things, the hydromet system. And understand the real needs in terms of the frequency and the timing of information when designing climate service products, so that they can really be useful to different user groups.
Yeah.
Then allocating technical staff and the budget is another big prerequisite to ensure the sustainability of the system. I think that's how the sort of main points I gathered from our group. Anyway, so hopefully we will be able to capture all these sticky notes, right, contributed by the group.
Yes, we're going to summarize them. Yeah, and also from our team, Margaret, you want to just say a quick words on what we discussed? Oh.
Problem. Just a quick comment on our group. We had a
Mm-hmm.
discussion about viable business models for hydromet and climate services and using concrete examples. And in our group, we shared an example of farmer subscription services as a good example of being tested in a number of African countries. And these are often done in partnership with either the mobile telecommunication companies or other, and then the providers of the science, the data and information. And I think I can see my colleague Gareth has his hand up, and I think may want to add to, or may have something related to that. But that was just a quick input from our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, I don't know if someone has any other question or contribution to this large group. Again,
I think Gareth.
Yes, Gareth. Yeah, I'm seeing your hand. Gareth, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to expand just slightly on the description of the adaptation benefits mechanism. It's a results-based payment program, so that the business model would be that a private sector developer would negotiate a payment for the delivery of adaptation benefits. In this case, it would be accurate weather reports that are used, and a donor would make a payment for each time a report is delivered. and the payments would be structured. Maybe it would take 3 years or 5 years for the business to become sustainable to the extent that consumers would then be willing to pay for it. So the donor.
Gareth, I think that we lost you.
With my connection.
You're back again. Yes.
Yes. So I was just saying that this is a results-based payment instrument, so that a project developer would negotiate with an off-taker or a donor what level of financial support they need until such time as the project becomes sustainably financially sustainable, or in other words, until such time as the consumers are willing to start paying for the results. And with this approach, the project developer takes on the risk. If they're unable to deliver useful materials or useful weather reports, then nobody will pay for them, and they will lose out. But if they are successful, then they would be paid by the developer, sorry, by a donor. Anyway, we think this instrument can help to pay for adaptation benefits. In the weather space is a good example. Also things like climate resilient agriculture or infrastructure and mangroves and things like that. And if you want to know more, if you just Google adaptation benefits, you'll find our webpage, and you can see more about it there. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gareth. Yeah, thank you. Also, we welcome you to send us through via email, or if you have any other comments and other examples you want to share with us, and we can also consider them for next webinars maybe, and also the staff of CFAU can also comment if you have any other questions via email. Just a quick wrap up. How can you go, please? So again, thank you all of you for joining us today. I don't know if you can change the final slide, please. Well, I don't know what's happening. Never mind. Yeah. So just thank you all of you for joining us. Just a quick reminder, we are going to have any other webinars. First, we're going to have some meetings of this group later on September and the rest of the months. But also we have another upcoming TCLP wide webinar. The day is September 23rd. You will receive the link for registration soon. The topic will be on catalyzing transformation in value chains. I think this will be very interesting for all of you, and you will receive also the invitation soon. And again, thank you all for joining. Remember that we have a very open window for you to propose topics, see if we can merge with other topics that were proposed before, and also we welcome you to also nominate yourself for being a speaker for those next webinars. We are going to send all of this information via email, but pues, again, thank you and have a great day. I don't know if it's, any other has another, yeah?
Carolina,
Anna?
just to, Carolina,
sure.
just a quick,
Glory?
just to quickly add, I think there were a few questions in the early part after our presentation, so we would be happy to communicate via email to answer some of those questions, since we didn't have the time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lori, and thank you all of you, and thank you for joining us today. Remember, these are the dates for the next webinars of this group. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody, and goodbye.